Okay, good morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us. My name is Roger Hay. I'm the Electricity System Manager here at Western Power Distribution. I'm going to be talking to you this morning and taking your questions on the Green Recovery Scheme. We've recently published a call for evidence. I will run through and talk to you a little bit about it first. We'll then take questions and answers, and I'm joined by my colleague, John Tan. John is the Power System Design Manager for the East Midlands region, and this webinar we're running this morning is specific for the East Midlands region, but if you're joining us from outside the East Midlands, you are of course also most welcome. The format that we're going to run through is I'll run through a short presentation. We'll then take some Q&A. The way this works on Zoom, for those of you not familiar with Zoom, up at the top right hand side of your screen, there'll be a Q&A button. What I'd encourage you to do is to use that as I talk, as we go through the presentation, asking questions as we go, and then we'll pick up those questions at the end. My colleague Michael Clark from our communications team will be helping to collate and organise those questions so we can try and put a bit of structure to it. Should you have any technical issues or technical queries, we have our technical experts from Helpful Digital, Tally and Julie, also on the call. So if you pop any questions around sort of technical issues, anything you're struggling with in the chat function, which is also at the top right hand side, they will be able to help you with those. So first of all, just let me remind you who Western Power Distribution are. So we're the distribution local network operator. And we cover 4 regions. We cover the southwest of England, we cover South Wales, the West Midlands, and here today, the East Midlands. Overall, we've got about 22,000 kilometres of cables and lines. We look after all the poles and the towers, the transformers and the substations. That's what we do, and this is where we do it. So what does a distribution network operator do, and what don't we do? Well, we're the wires, we're the people who take the power from the national grid. The power stations where it's generated traditionally would generate the power at big coal-fired power stations, nuclear power stations and the like, squirt it into the national grid. We pick it up from the national grid and we deliver it all the way through to our 8 million customer individual homes. That's where the energy suppliers take over. So the energy suppliers, the people you buy your energy from, are the people who and provide your meter and provide your billing and provide you with your energy services. Now the world is changing a little bit, and we're transitioning to what is called the distribution system operator. In simple terms, what that means is operating a more active and interactive electricity grid. And that's because the way we generate power and the way that we consume power is changing rapidly. So we're seeing the closure of the fossil fuel power stations. We're seeing a lot more renewables in the form of wind and solar coming onto the system. And of course, it's not just big sites, it's also small locations, individual homes with solar panels on their roofs. And the way we consume power is changing as well, and set to change even further as we transition to deliver our carbon targets and transition and change the way we use energy to hit net zero emissions. We're starting to see electric heating and electric cars and the like. So what that means is overall you end up with a much more active and interactive and frankly much more exciting electricity grid. But our prime job is still to keep the lights on. We're the people who ensure that the critical businesses, services and homes have power where and when they need it. Our teams of technicians are the people you see roundabout in their lovely white vans maintaining equipment. When the power goes off, they're the people who come out and fix it, usually very quickly, and we pride ourselves on the level of customer service that we give, particularly on fault response. Now, a really big part of what we do now is connecting new customers or changing the way customers are connected as they adopt things like electric cars or want to connect generation to the grid. And we're going to see a massive increase in the amount of interaction we have with customers as we change the way customers are connected and connect new endpoints onto the system. And all this interactivity that I was talking about in the future, our grid is increasingly what we call smart. We're able to see what it's doing in real time and remotely control it, so that we can manage all these two-way power flows across the system. But what we're here today to talk about is the green recovery. What is the green recovery in the electricity grid context? Well, we've been working alongside Ofgem and the other network operators. And what we've recognized is that coming out of this terrible year or so that we've had in the pandemic, is there's a real opportunity to try and unlock investment in the grid so that we can rapidly boost green growth, create jobs and support the transition to net zero. What we're planning to do is to bring forward investment that maybe wouldn't have happened for a number of years and deliver that in the short term. It's something that we're really excited about being able to do. So from Monday the 8th of February, we commenced a 6-week call for evidence on our plans for how we'll spend this green recovery money. And we want to hear from as many stakeholders as possible, coming from a variety of backgrounds, wanting to connect different types of technology. And what we want from people is ideas, and your ideas of projects which are frankly sort of shovel ready, really ready to go, where we can get on and start building the electricity infrastructure that would help support your schemes. And the evidence that we're going to gather to be able to target the money we're going to spend, we'll be looking at utilization, so how much capacity might we be able to use up quickly. We don't want to spend all the money building something that isn't then going to be used for a long time. Critically, how deliverable is it? Can we actually get on and build the infrastructure? So those things where we're confident we will be able to get permissions to build things, there won't be local objections to building things, will score particularly highly. And then obviously with a finite pot of money we're looking to spend, we're looking to get the really best value we can for this investment. And we're not just going to look at the value in terms of what it means for your particular scheme. We'll be looking at wider societal benefits that could potentially be leveraged and achieved through this investment. So what are we actually offering? Well, we're offering up to £20 million in the East Midlands between now and 2023, and we're offering the same money in our 3 other licence areas. The investment will go towards upgrading and building the electricity grid infrastructure. So it's our assets the money is going to be spent on, but it's going to be enabling green developments such as electric vehicle chargers, maybe mass deployment of electrical heating, or the deployment of renewable generation such as solar or battery storage. And we'll be helping build out the infrastructure that can help these schemes come more rapidly to fruition than otherwise they would have done. Now, we've had a go, rather than start with a blank piece of paper, we've had a go at trying to identify areas that we think would be particularly suitable to this scheme. It's where we think there are technology projects which are potentially ready to go, and where we think there are already network restrictions. And we think that in these areas, what we'll be able to do is effectively to extend the electricity grid out closer to where you've got your projects. That's what we think the money could best be spent on. But we welcome your views. Customers who participate in this green recovery scheme will still need to pay for their own sole use connection assets, and will still need to follow the normal connection application process. But as I say, we will be bringing the grid nearer, so some of those what we in the industry called upstream reinforcement costs will be funded through the scheme rather than attributable partly to the customer. So here's the map. It's up on our website, showing our best view of where the green recovery areas would be. And as you can see in the East Midlands, there's a fair smattering of them, ranging right from the south of the region around Milton Keynes up into North Nottinghamshire, and then right out onto the East Coast around the Wash. So we think we've got a good spread, but this is our best view of where the best areas, and we're not ruling any area that isn't shaded. We're not ruling out projects anywhere within the region. Anything that we do for it to be eligible under the Green Recovery Scheme would need to include building or upgrading existing networks, or building new networks, either 11 kV, 33 kV, 66, and so on. For example, it could include upgrading a local 11 kV network in a town so that a planned sort of mass EV charging location could be more rapidly developed. Or maybe it could be rebuilding overhead lines between two rural substations, such that some renewable energy schemes could be more rapidly developed. So one of the key questions to you is, have we identified the right areas for investment? And do you have schemes that are effectively shovel ready, that we'll be able to immediately start design work on, begin construction later this year, and deliver within the next 2 years? So we're hoping we get absolutely inundated with ideas through this scheme. We will obviously need to prioritise and assess each idea and come up with some sort of scoring methodology for the schemes which will be taken forward. So we would like to get your ideas back. The application window closes on the our assessment will be complete by the 19th of March, and we've already built up a number of evaluation criteria. The more things you can hit in terms of our evaluation criteria, then obviously the higher you'll score and the more likely your scheme will go ahead. And on the slide are some of the areas that we will be assessing applications against this. This is all available online on the Green Recovery portion of our website. So here's the timetable. We've launched the call for evidence already. We're running a number of these webinars to give you the opportunity to ask questions. The response period, 8th February to 19th of March. Once we've then finalised the short listing of projects, what we'll do is we will take those back to Ofgem and to the Department of Business, Energy, Innovation and Skills, or BEIS as it's called, where we will be running through those schemes and putting some our endorsement on the ones we think will benefit jobs, skills and economic growth the best, and deliver the best overall value. We've planned for that process to be complete by the middle of May, and at that point we'll be into the detailed design of them and we'll be rapidly beginning the construction. So this is a very quick turnaround. So again, just to re-emphasize, this is all about your schemes that can also be actually proceeding and at the construction stage in these timescales. So what we're asking you to do is to visit our website, complete the questionnaire that's on there. You're welcome to comment on whether you think we've got the right highlighted areas or not, and send us information on any areas that you think we might have missed. On there you can fill the form in and submit details of your green recovery projects that are really ready to go. And all the details for how to do that are on your screen, and will also be available just by using Google and looking on our website. And at that point, I'll conclude, and I'm happy to attempt to take any of your questions.
Hi there, Roger. It's Michael Clark, and hello there, everybody. I'm from the corporate communications team at Western Power Distribution. Please send through all of your questions via the Q&A button. We've got a good chunk of time now to field any questions. And Roger and John are on hand to ask those. To let you all know as well, there is an FAQ section on the Green Recovery webpage, so I would refer you to there, so you can find out more from there. Also, if there are any questions that you think of after the webinar that you'd like to ask, then we do have an email address as well, which is wpdgreenrecovery@westernpower.co.uk. So please send through those questions to us there, and we'll get to those and answer those for you as well. Roger, few questions that we've had through from the webinars so far. Is there a minimum scale of development that WPD is interested in for this call for evidence?
What we're looking for, Michael, is the best value for money. So in short, no, there isn't. We would look at large schemes as well as small schemes. There is a finite amount of money, so I think it would probably be unlikely as we'd spend all the money on one project. So we're looking for a good spread, but I can see no reason at all why some of these schemes couldn't be smaller. Again, if they're cumulative, so for example, if it was a village where a local cooperative or community energy group was looking at putting individual heat pumps in, that may well have a cumulative effect where it would be worth investing some money in extending maybe 11,000 volt network closer to the village, or maybe undergrounding one of the lines that comes in at the moment, so we could put a higher capacity cable in. That's, that kind of thing is absolutely the sort of thing we might get quite excited about.
Thanks, Roger. Question from Guy Morrison. Thank you, Guy. From the information WPD have used to create their green recovery scheme, there must be some locations where you're certain that reinforcement is required. Will these go ahead regardless of the call for evidence?
Well, we're always, we have a planned scheme of reinforcement, Guy. So there's always works in, progress. There will be things happening today where we will be out there building additional grid. The purpose of this scheme is frankly to do things that aren't in the plan. That's why this is extra money. So we're looking for things that aren't currently sort of justified. To some extent, this money is a little bit more speculative. It's sort of investment ahead of that definite need. Where there is a definite need, we'd have already planned for it and will already be building it.
Great, thanks, Roger. Next questions come from Peter Udy. You've used the phrase shovel ready. We've got projects that may not be shovel ready, but may help you see what might happen. Do you want these?
Yeah, good question, Peter. And I did say shovel ready quite a few times. I'm quite aware of that. It's quite embarrassing, actually. This isn't that one of Boris's terms that I've kind of stolen. Hey ho. Anyway, no, what we are looking for is projects, as I've said, which can actually proceed. What we don't want to be doing is investing in a project where the upgraded capacity we used isn't actually going to be used for many, many years. We want the things connecting on the end of it by the end of 2022, very, very early part of 2023. So pretty much we recognise that in order to hit those timescales, if you're a developer of a renewable site or looking at EV charging, you would probably be already some way down the kind of consenting process, purchasing land or something like that. So this is not for speculative inquiries. You're welcome to submit anything, but I would suggest something that looks quite speculative will probably score quite lowly in this scheme.
Okay, understood. Thanks, Roger. Question from Just Riot. Can SMEs be part of this?
Not sure I fully understand the question. SMEs in terms of applying for a SMEs
I
who
would.
have
I imagine it's It can they apply for the call for evidence? Is what I would take from that question.
anyone can apply for the call for evidence. This isn't limited to local authorities or community energy groups or renewable developers. Anyone can apply for this scheme. So there's no reason why, as a owner of a SME, you couldn't propose a project under the scheme. No, absolutely not. It'd be great.
Great. Got a question specific to Nottinghamshire, but probably relevant for other areas for an anonymous. We've currently got an application for a new connection in Nottinghamshire to facilitate the installation of EV charging points. Would this fit the bill?
Well, given it's specific about Nottinghamshire, I'm going to let my colleague John Tan introduce himself, and you can listen to John for a moment rather than me.
Thank you very much, Roger. Yeah, thanks for the question on the Nottinghamshire project for the electric EV charging points. I believe if you have an application in for new connection, I'm not sure if you receive an offer and have accepted an offer from us already for that for the installation. Any existing schemes that is underway, unfortunately, wouldn't be form part of the green recovery initiative. Hope that kind of answer your question.
Thank you for that, John.
Yeah, it basically needs to be advanced, but not so advanced that you've already had a connection agreement and started work on it. This isn't a retrospective scheme. This is for new things that aren't already planned.
Next question from Anonymous. How detailed or advanced should the project proposals be?
Well, I think I've probably just answered the not too advanced, not so advanced that you've already got a connection offer, or we've sort of started work on it. What we're looking for is confidence that your plans are sufficiently advanced, they can be delivered. So the more evidence you can provide that the thing that you're planning to do would happen, and I mean would happen rather than could happen, the better. That's what we're looking for. But there's no sort of specific, list of things that we're asking to see, land rights or planning permissions or, proof of financial, backing or, anything like that. The more stuff you can provide to us that gives us confidence that should we go and build the grid out to you, your bit will actually happen, the better. That's how I'd answer the anonymous attendee question.
Okay. Thanks to everybody sending these questions in. Just to let you know that we'll try to get through as many of these as possible, but what we're going to do is collate all of the questions that have been asked across the webinars that we've got across the regions, and then we'll send answers to each and every one of you, and we'll also publish them on the Green Recovery site. So that will likely happen next week, but we've still got some time, so we'll go through as many as we can. Roger, Matt Whitehead asks, we're looking at the long term to 2030 and beyond, and particularly assessing electricity constraints. Will there be an opportunity to accept input for longer term challenges within a further consultation?
Yeah, that isn't really the purpose of this scheme. However, that's a great question, because that actually gives me the opportunity to plug another big piece of work we've got going on at the moment, which is our business planning activity for our next regulatory price control period. So this is the investments we're planning to make between 2023 and 2028. And 2028 is very close to 2030. So clearly we need to be a long way down the road by 2030. We recently published the first draft version of our business plan. That is on the website, and we are seeking feedback on those investments we're planning to make in that next price control period. Currently, that consultation is open, and we have a series of stakeholder engagements and workshops, and we even have a quite exciting rapid fire session, which I think is the 2nd of March. Michael will correct me if
that's right.
If that's wrong. on the 2nd of March. So if you'd like to come along to those and talk to us about longer term stuff, that would be absolutely excellent. I promise it's going to be a fun and very rapid morning that we're going to be having.
And just to add to that as well, Roger, for anybody who is interested in attending that event, if you go to westernpower.co.uk/BP1, you will find more information and details of how to register for that event. Roger, the next question is from Bharat Pathania, who has asked, are the green recovery upgrade locations identified based on the EV uptake forecast scenarios for the region? So this is the EV targets for 2030.
Well, there's no better person to answer that than John, because John put these together. So John.
Thanks, Roger. Yes, Bharat, we do take into account some EV forecast that, from the work that we've done with our strategy team, and this has formed an input into the list of schemes that we've come up with. But I will still encourage stakeholders to put in their input into this, so that at least we can evidence that this is not just a generic forecast. There is real evidence that there's a push for EV installation and EV uptake within these regions. So if the stakeholders can continue to inform us of this uptake and local initiative, that would be much appreciated.
Thanks, John.
That's a good answer, Johnny. So we take everything into account that we know, but we don't ever profess to know everything. So if you've got better insight about something exciting that's happening on the EVs in a particular area, then by all means share that with us.
Thanks, Roger. Next question's from Cara Prendergast. She says that we've put in an application but not yet heard back from WPD. Would this qualify?
That's one for John as well, I think.
Yes, I suspect that you have to look at the particular site, and therefore you've put in an application. So you've progressed the site for a certain development to a certain stage. So I will still encourage you to put that through to us. As part of the criteria of assessment, if you also have applied for a connection in the past, by all means reference that in your application, so that at least we can look at what was the reason for the site not going forward, and potentially it could be, as this initiative is targeted for, if the infrastructure or the cost of reinforcement is quite prohibitive for the scheme itself. Therefore, we would like to encourage that reinforcement to happen much earlier to facilitate future connections.
Right. Next question has come through from anonymous attendee, and they are asking, are projects which have already received public money through schemes such as the Getting Building Fund be in scope?
So yeah, if you're using other grant funding or other public funding to build the sort of customer end of the assets, there is absolutely no reason why it wouldn't also be eligible under the Green Recovery Scheme to pay for some of that grid reinforcement that's bringing the electricity grid and greater capacity closer to the scheme you've already got funding for. So yeah, absolutely. That would give me even more confidence that the thing you're proposing would actually happen if you can show me that you've got the money, and not only have you got the money, that you have to spend the money, because that was the deal when you signed up to that grant.
Great. Next question, Roger, and please do keep these questions coming. Thank you. So if you're a layperson out there, how do you check what grid capacity is in situ to identify the location gaps?
Oh, that's a good question. So we have a whole host of sort of grid capacity maps which are available on our website. You can go on and find your area, find the little substation that you're fed from, and it will give you an indication of how much capacity is in the area. But again, under this scheme, if you are uncertain about that, or you don't feel you're able to get that information, then by all means you are welcome to still submit it through this process. And if it turns out that there isn't any grid constraints and you can already proceed, well, that's what we'll let you know when we come to analyse your project, which would be brilliant news, wouldn't it? Of course, any customer can always ask about their grid capacity, or whether they need or would like a larger connection at any time. You can do that through our normal day-to-day connection service.
Thank you, Roger. Nicola Stevens has been in touch to say that they've got several road building projects which are planned for delivery within your window. Can you please explain how this investment can work with that?
Road building. Well, I'm assuming the link here would be to electric vehicles rather than conventional engined vehicles. So how could this scheme work with electric vehicles? Well, I guess if you are also looking at some sort of service area filling station that was along these new roads, and this was an opportunity to install a charging hub. You know, you've got space and the funding to be able to install the charging hub. Then yes, these two initiatives would complement one another. If I've completely got the wrong end of the stick on that question, feel free to pose another question and I'll have another go.
Thanks, Roger. Some questions that we've had through across the webinars, it has been whether any of our investment covers work on the customer side. Could you clarify that, Roger? Yeah,
just to be completely clear, it doesn't. So this is for investment in grid infrastructure. So basically things that are on the network side of the meter. So any works that need to be completed on the customer side of the connection, including the assets themselves and any other costs, they would need to be co-funded by whoever's bringing the project forward.
Another question that we've had in a few times has been, can we clarify what's meant by shovel ready and ready to go projects?
Well, the reason we've been a little bit vague is it's quite hard to actually define. You know, you've seen when I flashed up on the screen the number of criteria we are assessing projects against. There isn't one thing that says this thing is ready to go. So it is the degree of confidence we have that a project can be delivered and concluded by March 2023. So again, those that are going to be concluded well before that, we would be even more sort of convinced that the investment we were going to make was going to deliver value, economic growth, more rapid transition to net zero. So the sooner the better. But there isn't an exact definition of what we mean by shovel ready. We're hoping to be hugely oversubscribed on this scheme and get the absolute best projects out there with us building the connection, the customer side assets all being developed, and all this happening at a pace that just wouldn't have happened without this scheme. That's what we're looking to see.
Perfect. Roger, you'll be glad to hear that Nicola Stevens has been back in touch, and she said you did answer her question on the road building project. So thank you for clarifying that, Nicola. And she wants to speak to somebody for follow-up queries. So we'll be in touch with you, Nicola, about that. Roger, another question that we've had come through is that if there are multiple projects that they'd like to put forward, would we like a consolidated response or separate submissions?
Ideally, I would prefer separate submissions. That's going to make them far easier to assess. Now, clearly, if you've got multiple schemes that are complement one another, i.e. if you have scheme A that does one thing, scheme B that does something else, but you think that by doing A and B delivers even more value, then by all means, when you submit the ideas, if you could, put on those ideas that they link with one another and an indication of what the additional value is if we choose both lots, or, there may well be, A to M, lots of lots. By all means, if you link those together, we'll be able to work that out. He says, speaking for John Tan, who will have the fantastic job of actually going through all these, his team will.
We've probably got time for a couple more questions, so if anybody wants to send in their questions, I urge you to send them now. Next question, Roger, is it seems though that there have been projects which haven't been developed due to expensive WPD reinforcement costs in the past. Will such projects be worth submitting as they're still on the shelf using previous connection offers that haven't been accepted?
Yeah, if it meets the eligibility criteria, and if it isn't something that we've already agreed to and effectively got a contract for, then yeah, by all means, submit it. If this scheme can help, that's exactly what it's supposed to, designed to be doing, is to unlock things that otherwise wouldn't be happening now. So yes, please.
Great. And the last question here, would you want the grid installation completed by March 2023 or the assets developed in full by this date?
The more the merrier. So again, we're hoping to be oversubscribed. So the more that can be complete well ahead of March 2023, the higher things will score. So yeah, everything finished, costs incurred on all the grid side by March 2023 is the drop dead date for this funding scheme. But I would hope that we will be picking schemes which will be completed out there that we can all go and visit and have photographs taken with and be very proud of well in advance of that deadline.
Thanks, Roger, and thanks to everybody who sent the questions through. I think we've covered loads off. Any questions that we haven't been able to cover, we will answer after this. But I'm conscious that we're running short on time now. So thanks everybody, and I'll just pass you back over to Roger to finish up.
Great. Well, thank you to everybody for your attention, everyone who's joined us. Particularly thank you for the questions, because it would have been mightily difficult if you hadn't have asked any questions. Thank you also to Michael and to John for supporting me, and as ever with these things, to the hidden heroes of Julie and Tally in the background who've made the technology work. And from my perspective, it appears to have worked very well. If you have any feedback on the webinar itself, how it's run, the format, the content, the technology, by all means, if you feed those back through as well, that would be very much appreciated. But yeah, I look forward to receiving your completed schemes, and I'll be paying a very close attention to all the ones in the East Midlands, because I feel like I've kind of got a vested interest in these now. So yeah, best of luck.